Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast, live with me, Francesca Fiorentini. I am your host. I am your captain. Thank you so much for being here. We are back. We had a little break. For those of you who are like content, we had a little break from Friday because we did a live show on Friday. So it's fun to be back. And we have such a great show for y'all today. Representative of Arizona's 3rd District, Yassamin Ansari, is going to be with us. She is one of the few congresspeople who decided to make that journey to El Salvador to protest, or to not even protest, to follow up on the disappearance and the kidnapping of an American resident. And so obviously Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and there's more news when it comes to how many of the men who are being detained in Siccot in El Salvador are actually criminals. We can take guesses if you don't know what the number is. We're going to be joined by her in a little bit. There's a lot to get to when it comes to ICE, what they've been doing to electeds, and I'm very curious to get the representatives' thoughts on that. And also, of course, some unfiltered thoughts on the future of the Democratic Party as the party is experiencing record low support. So as much as we all and the country hates MAGA and is turning on Trump if they ever were on board with him, sadly, the Democratic Party is not the vehicle that people are excited about or have confidence in. So I want to talk to the representative about that. It's going to be so good. So if you're here, you know what to do. You're pressing the buttons, you're clicking a thing, you are liking the stream and sharing it. You're clicking the bell so you know whenever we go live, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We've got a little bit of a break coming up in June 16th, so I'll be taking that week off. But there's something extra special in store to suffice for my absence. So stay tuned for that. I also want to remind y'all that we did this live show on Friday. It was so good. It was so fun. Packed out the Elysian Theater. Council member Eunices Hernandez was on. We had somebody from the Rent Brigade. It was so good. And you can listen to that episode wherever you get your podcasts, but on the Bituation Room's feed. And you can also, I posted it over on Patreon as well. So don't worry, you get that in your ear holes. We did film it, so it will be out on YouTube imminently, once we get all the bells and whistles correct. So stay tuned for that. John Idarola, obviously, of the Damage Report, as well as Matt Lieb. There was some good bitchuating happening. It was just such a great night. And that brings me to the announcement that we're going to be doing another live show. We're going to be doing 2 live shows. In fact, when I say we, I mean me and Mr. Matt Lieb, my husband. We're going to Seattle. That is right. Seattle, Washington. For those of you who say it's always California, well, now it's somewhere else on the West Coast. We'll be in Seattle on Friday, August 1st and Saturday, August 2nd. Friday, August 1st at Laughs Comedy Club, doing a co-headlining set. And on Saturday, we're going to be at the Rainier Arts Center, 7 p.m. for the live Bituation Room. I'm very excited. Lineup to be announced. But Matt and I will be there. So if you're in the Seattle area, come out, see us, get tickets. They're already on sale. Really, really love the live format and just how much I learn, how much community, how many people come out, and especially in cities that I don't currently live in. So that's going to be fun. And remember, there are ways to support this show, and you will get a shout out during the fart song if you're a patron at $10 or more. A patron. We don't have any right now, so my little heart is very sad. You can also, if you're watching on Substack, become a paid subscriber. Substack.frannyfio or frannyfio.substack.com is where you go. But patreon.com/Bituation Room is what I would like you to do right now. Go there, support $2 a month, even $4 a month, $5 a month helps me and the very small team get paid to help and do the awesome work that they do. Paige and Brent and Andy, sometimes me. And it means the world. So thank you guys so much for even giving me the ability to do things like live shows. It's not easy, especially now, for real, tariffs are like, they really suck. And everyone's like, I'm scared, you know? The impact, of course, of Doge's recklessness, not recklessness, their very existence is causing so much pressure on the economy to the point where, you know, going and supporting live stand up or going out and seeing your favorite folks or podcasters who might be in town, like it's prohibitive and it fucking sucks. So I appreciate for those of you who still can support. It means the world. There's going to be more dates very, very soon. But yes, get at that. There's so many reasons to become a patron. 25% off of our sponsors. You get discounts, 20% off merch, bitchuationroom.com. Again, still working on the bitch caps. It's been months, but I'm really trying to get cute ones. So stay tuned for that. Also the Franny packs, which I sort of gave up on because I couldn't find cute ones. It's fine. The point is 20% off of merch, 60% off the American Prospect magazine, which I write for, and I have a new column out, which is very fun. It's all about the Baileys, who are Senator Chuck Schumer's imaginary voter friends. Yes, that is real. That's a real thing I just said. There's so much to get into, guys. I think that does it for announcements. Let's go. Let's talk about it. This is What Are You Bitching About? Okay, so today, look, we are in a will they, won't they, some kind of ceasefire negotiations. Apparently, Hamas rejected a ceasefire negotiation, which I don't know if I quite believe that, but also they're trying to end the war permanently, the genocide permanently. And we all know that if Israel agreed to anything, it is definitely to not let them do that. We saw over 2 days ago on June 1st, the distribution of aid to some Palestinians in Gaza. They lined up, they walked for miles, they lined up, and then they were summarily gunned down. So dozens of people were shot at, killed, injured during what was supposed to be a humanitarian food distribution. So suddenly now we're using food as almost, what is this, some sort of like Bugs Bunny type genocide situation. Things are incredibly grim, and they continue to be. And they are especially grim when you start looking at how the Democratic Party has and had gone along with everything that has been happening in Gaza and everything that Israel's been doing. And this week, former State Department spokesperson Matt Miller, one of the bad Matts, who had been, his job was really to field questions about the obvious targeting of hospital workers and children and refugee camps, the obvious lies that Israel kept spinning, and for 15 months launder the Biden administration's line about whether or not there were war crimes being committed, whether or not they were being seriously investigated, and whether or not there was going to be any kind of repercussions should it turn out that yes, indeed, there were war crimes being committed, meaning were we ever going to stop selling weapons to Israel? And now that Biden is out of the Oval Office, now that Biden staffers are out of the Oval Office, now that they're all sort of trying to find where they're going to land next, it's fun to see Matt Miller sort of untethered. He was on a Sky News interview, and he was point blank asked if Israel was committing war crimes. And he made the mistake of saying yes. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. And look, you can come down on a couple sides of this, like, hey, at least he's being honest, or, oh my God, I can't believe you're going to so casually admit this and then not immediately follow it up with a massive amounts of responsibility, mea culpa, and a condemnation of the administration that you straight up laundered talking points and a genocide for. Take a look.
What's going on in Gaza now is a genocide?
I don't think it's a genocide, but I think I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government. The United States government has had not.
Okay, when you're at the podium, you're just expressing the conclusions of the United States government. So in other words, he's saying I was just following orders, right? But also, you're the spokesperson for the State Department. The kinds of things that you are privy to, the things that you know, and then the things that you know you're actively lying about are immense, are innumerable. And so was it a problem that they weren't personally asking you? Because I'm pretty sure journalists asked Matt Miller every which way from Sunday, all kinds of ways about what was like, is it okay? Prem Talker from Zateo asking about Hindra Job, the 6-year-old who was murdered while her entire family was murdered in a car with her, calling desperately for help. Then the ambulance and emergency workers that went to go save her also were killed until she was finally killed. And this guy spun and spun these lies over and over and over and over again. And now he's like, I mean, yeah, there were, but I mean, it's not my personal belief. I'm literally an empty suit. That's all I do here. And I have no conscience or a soul.
Not concluded that they've committed war crimes. Still have not concluded that.
But your personal view is they have.
And
they were while you were there.
But yes. But here, let me qualify that. There are two ways.
I love Matt Miller still hasn't learned. Look at Homie's face. He's just, if you're listening, he's looking right at the camera, the interviewer. And like Matt Miller still hasn't learned that some of the things that he admits to, like, aren't incredibly jarring. Like that there aren't going to be follow-up questions. Because he's like, yeah, well, wait, hang on. What I'm saying is actually not that crazy. Let me qualify it. Let's see if he does it.
Is to think about the commission of war crimes. One is if the state has pursued a policy to deliberately committing war crimes or is acting reckless in a way that aids and abets war crimes. And that, yes, I think, is an open question.
Is it an open question? Well, first of all, number one, we know that states usually don't say, hey, this is a policy of war crimes. Hey, get a load of our genocide policy. No, they don't. They never say that. That's the whole point. Nobody actively admits they're doing ethnic cleansing while they're doing ethnic cleansing. But we know, just in terms of, I don't know, targeting so-called militants specifically when they're at home to maximize civilian casualty. That's an AI system, a policy, if you will, that Israel has pursued and continues to pursue. But so he's saying, making a difference. Well, if it's a policy, no, but now he's like, well, I think there were individual acts.
I think what is hard is almost certainly not an open question is that there have been individual incidents that have been war crimes where members of the Israeli military have committed war crimes. So ultimately, in almost every major conflict, including conflicts prosecuted by democracies, you will see individual members of the military, of militaries commit war crimes. And the way you judge a democracy is whether they hold those people accountable.
But Israel hasn't. That's been one of the...
No, that's my point,
right.
Is we have not yet seen them hold sufficient numbers of the military accountable, and I think it's an open question whether they're going to.
Well, okay, so if they don't hold the people accused of war crimes accountable, what about, like, so then are they a democracy anymore? I mean, I think by that standard, the United States has long not been a democracy. If you're talking about holding our own accountable for war crimes. Didn't Kissinger just die? like, is he still alive? I never remember whether he's alive or has died. I mean, we know Cheney and his like non-existent heart is still alive. But again, the callous and the sort of casual way that Matt Miller can admit there are war crimes being done and not in the same breath say, and I mean, honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if he was writing a book about how much he had to lie. Look, everyone's piling on Biden. Why don't you pile on him? That I was then told that this was yes, it was terrible. Do I have regrets? Yes. Not that anyone cares about saving Matt Miller's soul because he stood there and he lied time and time and time and time again. But it's just amazing that he even would I would rather him not say anything. Shut up, please. I realize my video is all messed up, but hopefully it'll correct itself in a little bit. Guys, before we get to, we don't have another guest, but it's just me. It's just me and you and me. I wanted to do a little, capitalism. Hey, what do you think about some capitalism? And let you know that, these are the days that we struggle. I'm struggling. Everyone's struggling. I feel a little bit better doing the show with y'all and being able to be in community with y'all. But we are in the sunken place. We are very much in the upside down. And sometimes it's hard to rest your head at night or just like get through your afternoon. That is why Sunset Lake CBD is with you and with me. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Obviously, you go there, get 20% off your entire order. Gummies, tinctures, relax gummies that are just like regular CBD. Then you've got focus gummies that have cordyceps in them in the morning. I feel like they really do help me. They also have coffee. If coffee gives you the jitters normally, this is coffee infused with CBD and it helps with that. They have salves for your aching parts, all kinds of things. And they're Vermont-based, vertically integrated, regeneratively farmed, and donate to amazing causes. Truly, and they'll give you like a breakdown of what is in this ingredient, and they're really good at answering questions. So if you've got questions, ask them, like, what do you recommend? Also, they've got tinctures for pets if you've got an aging or ailing pet. Luckily, I didn't have to give my cat any when she got her teeth out recently. My God, but I did get ripped a new one for those vet bills. The point is, SunsetLakeCBD.com, coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA is how you go to take advantage of that. 20% off your whole order. And also, let me just say, as a busy mom of one, sometimes I don't have time to cook. Let's be real. My lunches are very much of the frozen kind. And so it's nice to eat not frozen, fresh food that is still really quick. And that's why Factor Meals is also a sponsor of this podcast. And I'm super proud. The other day I had a cremini mushroom and meatballs lunch that was so good. The flavor is kind of unbelievable for something that, is sent directly to your house, and also tailored to your diet. If you're keto, vegetarian, they've got vegan options. So factormeals.com/bituation, BITCHUATION, spell it out, 50 off. Use the coupon code bituation50 off, and you get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, bituation50 off at factormeals.com/bituation50 off. And literally you need to do this. Like, there's no point in not taking advantage of this, and then see if you like it. They also have juices and they're so good, and like snacks and desserts and things. They're just like grab and go. So factormeals.com, check them out, guys. And with that, let's get into the week. We're going to do one story now and a couple stories on the other side of our interview with Representative Yassamin Ansari. This is the week where. So this is the week where a group of activists have set sail to try and break the siege on Gaza. This is momentous for many different reasons. One of them is that my girl Greta Thunberg, how dare you? How dare I imitate her so many times on stage? Greta is once again living up to her moniker of icon, legend, never gonna be a sellout queen. Like, I love her so much. She is one of a handful of activists that are on this boat from around the world. There's no American, which is a little bit upsetting. And they are trying to get to Gaza. They're on the Madeleine, and they are, you can track them actually. They're right now going through the Mediterranean, and they are trying to break the siege on Gaza, trying to get them much needed food and humanitarian aid. Here's what Greta sent, I believe, to Zateo.
I am currently standing on the Madeleine, the ship that on Sunday, June 1st, will attempt to again sail towards Gaza and to try to break the siege and open up a humanitarian corridor by delivering aid like food and medical supplies The last time we attempted this, about a month ago, the boat Conscience that we were about to board, just a couple of hours before we were planning to board and set sail, it got bombed twice, and all evidence suggests that it was Israel who did it.
Oh my god.
So now we are here in Catania, outside of Sicily, to try to continue our mission to try again. Because currently we are watching a systematic starvation of 2 million people, a live stream genocide, and the world's silence is deadly. That is why we have to keep trying everything we can, even if the odds are against us, to try to protest and do everything we can to stand against Israel's atrocities and war crimes, and to support and stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. So keep your eyes on deck, continue flooding the streets, organize, boycott, and do everything in your power to stand for Palestine.
Oh, she was your little climate change mascot until she started talking about Palestine, and that's how you know she's a real one. This is a woman who is just so good at not being anyone's puppet, not being like doing the thing that's going to be politically correct and right and righteous and not safe. And she did that by telling world leaders to basically F themselves on a world stage. And she's doing it now when she's standing for Palestinian human rights in the face of such a consensus that says, no, let's just continue to erase the people of Gaza and that will be all good. There are 11 other people on board. Rima Hassan, let's see, of the French Palestinian member of the European Parliament, Yassamin Ansari from Germany, Baptiste Andre, Thiago Avila, Omar Faid, Pascal Marius, Yanis Mamdi of France, Swab Ordu of Turkey, Sergio Toribio of Spain, Marcos van Rens of the Netherlands, and Reva Viard. I'm probably butchering all of these names. Look, the other day also on May 31st, it was the 15-year anniversary of the murder of 10 or 9 people who were on a similar Gaza flotilla trying to break the siege of the region, who were killed by Israel. They were, I think, majority were Turkish activists, but this is like, there is a very real threat that she will be killed. This is what Israel does. The least they could do is perhaps seize it, board it, and try to like forcibly turn it around. And the most is possibly killing people. And that, in the case of the Gaza flotilla raid, the Freedom Flotilla in 2010, they boarded it and also 9 people were killed. So I did, however, want to play, it seems like, not play, but show you that it seems like the death of someone like Greta Thunberg is exactly what ghouls like Lindsey Graham are hoping for. Because this is him tweeting out, hope Greta and her friends can swim. So good. So this is him just like openly, again, we've got like Representative Randy Fine, who's like, hey, we should nuke Gaza. And then of course a senator saying, I hope Greta and her friends can swim. So like, what if she is killed? What happens when she's killed? Are we just going to continue to blame her? I mean, it's truly sick type shit. But I have to just say, because one of my favorite characters of Game of Thrones was also, he's not on the ship, but Leon Cunningham of Game of Thrones, who's, I'm going to get this wrong, but he's basically like a advisor to the king who's like, yo, the Red Witch is trying to like seduce you with her incredible rack. Do you guys remember this? And actually Red Witch, hi, what's her name? Curice. I'm going to find her name. She's super down with Palestine. We've DM'd before. I'm such a dick. He is supporting the flotilla. Liam Cunningham.
Okay, hi, I'm Liam, Yasmin, Thiago. If you look in the background, there's a beautiful boat. These beautiful people are going to be going to break the siege in Gaza. These are our coordinators, and if I may use it, they won't use the word our heroes. Please, tell them why you're here.
Hi, my name is Yasmin. I'm from Germany. I'm a German citizen, and I feel it's my duty to be here because Germany is the second largest weapons supplier to this genocide. For 19 months they have been supplying weapons over weapons. They have not stopped aiding and abetting the genocide. And I'm here on the Madeleine to sail to Gaza to deliver the much needed aid because for 3 months we have been seeing nothing but destruction. I mean 19 months of destruction, but 3 months we have been seeing starvation. And the world is supporting that. Instead of stopping the genocide, instead of upholding humanity and international law, they're stepping on it with their feet. And that is why we are here. And we hope we can get to Gaza to deliver this aid and to deliver hope and to tell the Palestinians that they are not forgotten, that we are in solidarity with them, with an action.
We are in solidarity with an action. So we're backing it up with, something real here. And I wanted just to let you guys know that there is a freedomflotilla.org tracker. You can see where they are. So they're making their way from Sicily over to Gaza. Obviously, Aki, here we go. And you can track them. And sometimes I'll log on to here and be like, are you guys okay? Like, I'm curious, to see how close they get and what happens. But these are true heroes. They have more moral fortitude than most of our electeds combined. And they're really trying to do the damn thing and walk the damn walk. And so nothing but solidarity for them. And if you are anybody with even any kind of platform or no platform at all, you can post in support of them. That's what they're asking. They're asking people to post about them so we know about them, so that if and when something, awful happens and Israel does what it does, that we can't say we didn't know or that there is more attention there. My whole thing is like, you should have probably also gotten Taylor. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the Swifties just as a cohort, which I do think there's an overlap of anti-genocide, pro-Palestine Swifties. So that would be tight. If Taylor was on, Israel's so desperate to make it look like Taylor Swift and what was it, her bodyguard, like support Israel, that they would probably not kill people on board. But who knows? I mean, I'm a little embarrassed that there are no Americans here. But again, that's not, who knows? Maybe they were like, you've done enough. You're good. We're good on this. But yeah, so it's incredible. And more people should be doing it. I did want to just, before we bring on the representative, I think I'll do it now just because she's not jumping on right now, is, Bernie Sanders was on the BBC recently and he was another interview, another little bit of a tell-all. And I wanted to sort of juxtapose it and combine it with an interview that Jazmine Crockett did, a radio interview also, which is, as we see the Democratic Party under the leadership of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries truly fumble this ball of an anti-fascist resistance to the moment that we're in, you can see that they're all kind of just focused on 2026 and 2028, that they believe that somehow, number one, we'll still have free and fair elections. I'd like to push back on that. Number two, that this is where all of our energy should be going. And I think that's really, really misguided. But there was these two interviews were kind of fascinating because it shows you that the Democratic Party, at least maybe some of its consultants, they're not trying to switch it up. They're not trying to switch it up. And here is Bernie's kind of like honest assessment of the Kamala Harris candidacy. And I'll give you my thoughts on the other side.
A lot of the people are saying it was Joe Biden's fault that Kamala Harris lost the election. Just Joe Biden. He should have gotten out earlier. Not true. It was the fault of Kamala Harris and her consultants. Apropos of everything that I've been talking about this morning, they did not run a campaign designed to speak to the American working class.
She could have won then.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Trump is not popular. I mean, he's reasonably popular. But what that campaign was about, and I worked very hard to try to elect, I ran all over the country trying to elect Kamala Harris and begged them, talk to the needs of the working class. Talk about raising the minimum wage to a living wage. Talk about real health care reform. Talk about building the kinds of massive amounts of housing that we need, putting checks on landlords' greeds on housing. But they used their billionaire friends to get out and to basically say, Liz Cheney, who is, I appreciate her courage, but she's a very conservative Republican. And, Kamala spent more time with Liz Cheney almost than with anybody else. What is that message out to working class people? Had Mark Cuban, is a billionaire, out as her spokesman. So to my mind, that was a campaign that absolutely should have been winnable.
Cuban, I love the way he pronounces Cuban. Somehow that's really delightful to me. So there's Bernie with some hard truths about the, and I do think it needs to be said. And look, this is the kind of analysis that I wish he would have said more of, when he goes on the Flagrant podcast, instead of, I think, playing into some of the anti-woke backlash that honestly centrists and progressives like himself sometimes play into, that it was about her gender and her race and about playing that up too much, even though she literally never talked about it at all and would bristle when people talk about, her historic run or her position or being, a Black American or Indian American woman. All of that aside, leaving aside what Biden did, the brain broke Biden, staying in for way too long in the race, saying he was a transitional candidate, not being, the lack of a primary, all of that. I do think it's important to know, and I know I'm never going to be done with 2024, postmortems, because we're here. We're literally here because of it. So we better as hell learn the right lessons from 2024. And absolutely, it was a winnable race. I think it was very winnable. Trump is not very popular, but Democrats often are less popular. And to Bernie's point, again, having your brother-in-law, the Uber executive, sort of advise you, having Mark Cuban, having Liz Cheney, who speaks to nobody, it was a flaw, not being forceful, never really having a healthcare plan. Honestly, and we're going to talk to Representative Ansari a little bit about this, but never even really having a plan around immigration or a way to sort of stand up to some of the jingoism and the xenophobia that we've seen coming from the right. I do think it was Kamala's to lose. She was handed sloppy seconds, but it was very much hers to lose. And so I really don't buy into the idea that it was you got to run a safe white guy because it was all about identity. And again, remember, the likes of Pelosi, she always, after Hillary Clinton lost, it was we're not going to assess the neoliberal politics of this woman or how nobody really wanted her, or how she lost to Barack Obama in 2008. We're going to talk about how she's a woman and she talked about that too much. No. And as AOC may even take a run at the White House, I think we all be smart to remember that it really isn't about so-called, identity politics. We have to stop buying into the right-wing framing. Here's Jazmine Crockett in this interview, and she basically is look, I'm not going to name names, even though we kind of all know who she's talking about, but the same consultants came from Biden, maybe went to Kamala, and are I'm not saying it's the same, but she's they want a safe white boy. That's the assessment to stop MAGA, safe white boy.
Oh, there's a lot of people that are you know what? Let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell you it's not a black person nor woman. Okay. So it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen. And when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and moved. So that would be the they that I would talk about.
Oh God, I really need to know who the they is on both of these sides, but I kind of feel I kind of feel like it's Pete Buttigieg. I mean, in what world is it not Pete Buttigieg? And if Pete Buttigieg runs a centrist campaign to like restore normalcy or whatever and loses, it's definitely because he's gay. Happy Pride, everybody. No, so that just bothers me. I really feel like, again, once again, the wrong lessons might be taken from 2024. This like safe white guy politics, it really doesn't matter who they are, like what form they take. It matters what stances they take. It matters who's lining their pockets. It matters what they're standing for, right? We all knew that Tim Walz was to the left, and to them definitely like much more, not just relatable, forget that, but like way more progressive than Kamala Harris. The things that he, the things that he enacted in Minnesota, right? So TBD, I just thought those little interviews were very revealing and slightly disappointing. Let's bring my guest in finally. Let me get in there. She was sworn in into the House of Representatives in January 2024, making history as the youngest woman in the 119th Congress and the first Iranian-American Democrat. She also serves as a freshman class president for the Democrats in the 119th Congress. I love that. I love there's a class president. Wait. She was also before a sitting congressperson, vice mayor of Phoenix, was the youngest woman ever elected to the Phoenix City Council, representing one of the most diverse districts in the 5th largest and fastest growing city in the country. That's Arizona's 3rd. Please welcome Representative Yassamin Ansari.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for being here.
Of course. I was just watching. You were cracking me up. I loved it.
Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. You've been making a lot of the rounds into some very hostile terrain. We looked at a Laura Ingraham interview that you did after you came back from El Salvador, and good on you. Maybe good on them for even allowing you to speak, although she was very triggered by everything you had to say.
She was. I was a little shocked at how triggered she was, but quite the experience.
How important is that for you in terms of like the places that you go? I mean, I'm really glad you're here. This is a progressive left, podcast, but like in terms of going on to right-wing shows, I mean, I think you represented not just yourself, but honestly, the broader movement against fascism, if I can even call it that, and real due process and human rights. You represented it well. And do you feel like, just tell me about going into those spaces.
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciate that. I think you were just, touching on some of this before I popped on about just all of the conversations that are being had about the future of the Democratic Party and why did we lose and what we need to do. And I think like being a freshman member of Congress during truly probably the most unprecedented time, that one could be sworn in. I am thinking about these things all the time and definitely have very high expectations for myself. I want to be, part of like making our brand better and communicating with people where we haven't been. So honestly, at this point, my thinking on this is just try to do all of the things, try to, communicate in every corner possible. And I think on this issue in particular, obviously, like the language that Fox News uses, like makes me livid. And so I think it's really important to have, effective communicators go on and talk about this issue in a way that's different than how they are talking about it.
Yes. And I haven't pulled that clip, but there's so much more to talk about too. And, and I can see you're doing that, on social media. And I do think that like, even making the trip to El Salvador was part of it signaled, I think, to a lot of voters and to just the Democrats in general that there are electeds who are willing to honestly go the distance, put themselves in uncomfortable situations, even if it is just to like do a presser and talk about it or say that you're here and you care and you're concerned. Obviously, there's so much more that needs to be done, but I just wanted to like, maybe we just talk about like that visit to El Salvador.
Yeah.
238 men have been sent there, most of them Venezuelan, to Sicot. We now know, ProPublica just released this, the Trump administration knew the majority of Venezuelans sent to the Salvadoran prison had not been convicted of crimes. And sort of breaking that down even more, only 20 of the 238 men had any arrests or convictions. 11 were robbery, assault, murder, and 4 of them were gun possession. So like 11 so-called violent criminals. And obviously, to say nothing of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and the ways that they're targeting people, you know, in immigration court when they're trying to be law abiding. But like, why did you go? And then what was it like?
So, just the issue of immigration, and that I don't even know if that's the right term for this, but the treatment of immigrants and any sort of other by this administration has always been one of the issues that like riles me up the most. And from, you know, the get-go, Trump has fully, you know, followed through on his pledge around mass deportations and so much targeting of immigrants and refugees, I think, in a way that I even never expected in my, you know, worst nightmares, like from kidnapping people from their immigration appointments to just ripping, you know, families apart across the country right now, you know, at their workplaces or at schools, and safe, you know, places no longer being part of the equation. So my district is extremely diverse. I'm the daughter of immigrants. Like, this is just something that's very important to me. Then this case in particular, I think, you know, we've been talking of like, my parents immigrated here from Iran. I grew up hearing about authoritarian regimes. My mom would always say things like, you think democracy is guaranteed, and I promise you, like, things can change overnight. And I remember just laughing at her, not taking it seriously. You know, it's like, I'm like, okay, Mom, like, this is America. It's going to be fine. And now, I think this case really was that moment for me where you have the president defying a conservative Supreme Court that I rarely agree with these days. And that Supreme Court is saying you should never have sent this person to a prison in a foreign country when several years ago, you know, it was very clear that he was prohibited from being sent back. So the fact that he defied that Supreme Court order really terrifies me. And it should terrify everybody. And, you know, we tried to use official channels to go to El Salvador through the Oversight Committee. That was obviously rejected by the Republican majority. And look, I think that we are living in a time where, and you somewhat alluded to this, so much of our power comes from like being able to shape public sentiment, being able to inform people about what's going on, and being creative. And if I'm not going to get an official approval to take a trip and do all the things, then I'm just going to book a flight and go and figure it out. And that's what me and 3 of my colleagues did. And I'm so glad we did, because honestly, again, also Trump is flooding the zone. They are doing millions of crazy things every single day. And if you don't very intentionally keep attention on an issue and keep talking about it, it's going to be forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think that was, you know, I think that was something that was very successful, because, you know, we kept the discussion going, and there was polling afterward that says the majority of Americans believe that the president is defying the Supreme Court, that this person, you know, Kilmar Garcia, should be returned home. And I think that says something.
Yeah, let me ask you just on the visit, like, what was the reception of from El Salvador? You know, we saw you know, Chris Van Hollen, right, sort of be coldly received and denied access, and then given access, and then, you know, we see Kilmar in new clothes sitting with him. They tried to orchestrate the the drinks that they were having to make it look like they were sipping margaritas. And then the president Bukele even said, look at them, they're sipping margaritas. I was just like, what world are we in? But like, tell me about the treatment. I mean, we know that if you're a Republican and you're going to do propaganda on behalf of this kind of incarceration or this kind of, lawlessness, you'll get the red carpet rolled out for you. We've seen actually your Republican colleagues visit Sikat, go inside of it. So it all depends on how you're going to report on it or what you're going to say. But can you give us any insight about how they rejected you or what it looked like?
Yeah, so we had to be relatively careful in that regard, in that because we were not officially going on a trip, we had to do everything we had to attempt to do it through the US government. So by that, I mean, we sent, like, once it was all set, and this all happened very quickly, by the way, like a matter of a couple of days, we decided to do this. And we sent a letter, the four of us who traveled that we made the request to go visit Sikat and to see Kilmar Garcia, but we sent it through the US Embassy. And we had a meeting set with the ambassador to El Salvador, who was appointed under Biden. So a couple of things. We got to travel with the family's attorney, which was incredibly helpful because he had also been there with Senator Van Hollen. Obviously has the context, was very, and I just emphasize this because I think I had some doubts about the trip. He was extremely grateful and the family was extremely grateful. We got to FaceTime with them while we were there and had a deep conversation with them about the case. And they were very pleased that people were actually doing something and keeping attention on this and trying to help.
Yeah.
So we were with him. The four of us had a classified briefing with the US ambassador. The moment, we arrived, he told us that our request was rejected by the government of El Salvador to see him. And so then we had a number of other requests, and our main goal was to figure out also whether or not there had been any effort by the US government to actually take steps to facilitate the return.
Right, as the Supreme Court stipulated.
Because they had never quite, at that point, they hadn't really, they had tiptoed around it. They hadn't actually addressed that. And from everything that we got in that briefing, we concluded that the answer was no. And there were no efforts being made. In fact, to that point, no effort had been made either to ask about the Venezuelans that you mentioned, the hundreds of people who, why did they get sent to a country?
Right, because Kilmar is Salvadoran. You're right.
Yes, the Venezuelan migrants have nothing to, there's no reason they should be sent to this third country. And that's happening in many other cases, and we can talk about that too. But so that was something that we also asked the ambassador about. And then the case of Andre Romero, who is the gay makeup artist who also was sent there, and his family has not heard from him since March. I mean, these are just people are being disappeared to foreign prisons in these countries. So then we wrote a letter to the Secretary of State with these demands. We held a big press conference, had a ton of local press there. National press from the US had also traveled to go. So I think we really were able to kind of highlight the issue further. And then finally, we met with human rights groups on the ground. That was incredibly enlightening.
That's great.
Scary. Yeah. To get a real briefing from them on how the government there has sort of evolved over the last couple of years, and a lot of similarities between how Trump is really adopting Bukele's authoritarian playbook. And that he also, they are in a constitutional crisis. He has defied their Supreme Court by overstaying his term as president and so many other things. So,
all kinds of there was remote vote, absentee voting via app that was very shady in his last reelection. And again, we know that Bukele is a darling of the right. He spoke at CPAC. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right that there is a lot of commingling. They're fawning over this kind of mass sweeps, and they're attempting to do that here in the U.S. Now, just I think yesterday, two ICE officials were fired because they're not keeping up with the quotas of the goal of 3,000 people detained a day. And I wanted to just ask you about a trip you made to the Eloy detention facility in Arizona. Because we're being told, I mean, simultaneously, right, it is unconscionable the kinds of sweeps that are happening. Yes, all the students and the children and in addition to the deportations. But like, so long as they have this awful plan, their actual ability to humanely house people is a very far, not even second, third, maybe like 8th, 10th, 12th consideration. The conditions of a lot of these facilities are horrible. A lot of people are being held in, I believe, like county jails for extended amounts of time. We're always getting stories of, grandmothers who just got released after being, arrested or detained for 3 months and all this. So like, tell me about Eloy, and also like, just the reaction to you being a representative, given that, Representative LaMonica Ivor, she was charged for assaulting an ICE agent when she was also just on a, visitation oversight tour of this facility in New Jersey.
Yeah. So another example of something that is absolutely insane for a sitting member of Congress to be, to have charges pressed against her. And I am close with LaMonica and have heard this story directly from her and the other 2 members who were there. And the way, this administration has completely fabricated the story, and the way like they were bombarded by these ICE officials is crazy. So for that reason, I think it's extremely important that as many members of Congress as possible go to these detention centers and do visits, because we are legally allowed and, allowed by law to do so. And Trump dismantled 3 of the oversight bodies within DHS early on in his term this time. So other than us going to these facilities, there's basically no form of oversight that exists.
And you guys have a right to do that. Congress is allowed, because these are federal detention facilities, to make these visits, correct?
Yeah, so we're allowed to just show up, and they are required by law to give us a tour. Staff has to request like 24 hours in advance, but even, like my own team members should be able to go with that kind of notice. So, Phoenix, my district, Arizona, is very much on the front lines of Trump's immigration policies. So there's a lot of folks. We have constituents who we had heard from their family members who are in Eloy. So we went there, and I think given what happened in New Jersey, the process to get in was smooth. All of that, they didn't make us wait or anything, which is what happened in New Jersey. We went in. I was in there for 3 hours, got a very comprehensive tour of every part of the facility.
Were you able to speak with any people who were actually being detained?
Yes. And that's where there was a complete contradiction between the talking points, very diplomatic talking points that I got from the staff, who I understand were, they're doing their job. I'm doing my job. So we walked into the kind of cafeteria, and a lot of all the women were eating, because it's pretty separate by gender. And me and my district director, who was with me, we asked the gentleman who was giving us a tour, like, can we talk to these women? He's like, yep, absolutely. Like, go ahead. So we went and just sat down, started talking with some folks. The women were extremely eager to speak with us. People started kind of coming over to us, pulling us over. And the stories that they were sharing were horrific, and very detailed accounts of things that are going on there. Multiple stories that were very much focused on specific staff members there who are treating them in very dehumanizing, degrading ways. One specific story that, and I want to really clarify, this wasn't just like 1 or 2 people telling me this story. It was confirmed by probably over a dozen women. They pointed to a man who works in that space, and said, this man forced us all outside about a month ago, had us march around in the heat for like what felt like 2 hours. And he's like screaming at us and yelling things like, quote, "This is the price of the American dream."
Jeez.
Like things that just, they're so horrible. They sound fake, but all of these women are telling you this. So obvious, like it's true.
Just like some extremist little fiefdom that they're doing these like ridiculous exercises with people who are already, I mean, if you can, maybe you remember the kinds of folks, like these are not criminals.
No, these are just women. These are just women who are immigrants. Like some were new, had just tried to come into the country over the last couple of months. One was a DACA recipient who said she grew up in Phoenix and she was pulled over for running a red light and then was sent here. Another woman said she was at her green card appointment and her husband is a US citizen and she was sent here and hasn't been able to really speak with her family. So it was a variety of backgrounds. But none of these people were criminals in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, and then other, like a lot of just like, just dehumanizing, degrading, racist commentary. I think a lot of purposeful abuse, things like purposefully turning off the AC. Then like, eventually one of them said they turned the AC back on, but they were pissed about it. And so they like amped it up all the way until the point where they're freezing. And like she pointed to a woman who she's like, this woman has been sick, like really, really sick because of all of this. So it was, I felt so sick. And then what happened was the staffer who was giving us a tour at like, I would say around 30-40 minutes into us speaking with the women, he came and like grabbed us and was like, actually, like we weren't supposed to let you like.
Sure.
People.
Yeah. You can't go off the tour.
Yeah.
Stay on the tour.
Like, so at some, he had obviously spoken with someone and been told like, this is a mistake.
Yep.
But it was, it was kind of too late. So it was horrible. I mean, it was sickening.
And it sort of tracks with the other things that we've been hearing. And also just like even the awful, stories of even pregnant women losing their pregnancies in detention because they weren't given medical care. Yeah. And this is the, again, so-called pro-life party. I guess before I did want to actually maybe talk about just how reckless and lawless ICE is. And, I wanted to play this clip for you because this happened this week. Jerry Nadler, in his office in New York, the office shares the building with immigration court. And there was a protest against ICE in that immigration or outside that immigration court. And apparently one of his staffers, there was DHS trying to arrest people. One of his staffers was like, hey, couple protesters, you guys could stay in this office if you need to like chill for a moment. Right. Something that you can imagine happening. I mean, that's not the craziest thing in the world. And that's when DHS bust in and they arrested one of the staffers. She's not been charged, but just take a look.
She did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened.
You can hear her crying.
Okay.
They're handcuffing her right now.
Contact information right now. No, I'm going to do next time.
Hey.
That's what I'm going to do.
We got you.
No.
We got you. You're okay.
I don't have to.
You're okay. You're okay. You're going to be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something.
She said, I'm a federal officer. We're checking on something. That's what he's saying.
Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office.
So you can hear him say, you're harboring rioters in the office. And this was sort of their official line. Again, there were no actual charges, but it's wild. And she's in tears and like, man, I know those tears. You're not even sad. You're just like, I can't believe this is my fucking country. Like, I think, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, I can't believe this is happening. And there were later protesters arrested, obviously there was no violence. They were engaging in protest. But this is the kind of lawlessness that DHS is operating with. And you saying that, there's literally no oversight. Kristi Noem, who we know is really just in it for the photo op or whatever, some reality show she's trying to pitch in Hollywood. I want to play Hakeem Jeffries' response, and then I want to get your response. This was a little unfortunate, in my opinion. Here he was asked by Dana Bash on CNN about this incident in Jerry Nadler's office.
In terms of how we will respond to what Trump and the administration has endeavored to do, we will make that decision in a time, place, and manner of our choosing, but the response will be continuous, and it will meet the moment that is required.
What exactly does that mean? Have you not decided how to respond?
We've publicly responded in a variety of different ways. We haven't let our foot off the gas pedal in terms of additional things that may take place with respect to our congressional oversight authority and capacity. We will respond in a time, place, and manner of our choosing if this continues to happen.
So, Representative Ansari, without, getting you to speak ill of the speaker, this is continuing to happen. I mean, we just talked about Representative McIver being arrested and charged with assault when nothing of the sort happened. We saw a judge arrested in her own courtroom by ICE, and now you have staff of Jerry Nadler. I do think that was a very long and roundabout way, but has there been a collective response? Are you hearing of a response to things like this?
Yeah. I think so. Okay. So when LaMonica was, received the charges, and we're always on her and I both have like our first name basis, but I should say Representative McIver was charged. We had a big press conference outside the Capitol, and then a lot of discussion about people doing these surprise visits at these facilities. My belief is we need to be doing a lot more on the entire collective issue of the vast overreach, this is an authoritarian regime. That is what they are. We need to act like that. We need to be the opposition to that. And we need to be creative and bold about how we do that. And that just means the business as usual stuff just does not work, because nothing that this president is doing is normal. So I think there's going to be more. We have heard a little bit since that interview that there are pending actions. I don't know what those are yet, but some of us are taking this into our own hands because it's that important. I think it's just a matter of especially members of Congress who have personal family stories where we see the similarities.
Sure.
I have colleagues who, their parents are refugees, fled. We have, refugees within our class or within our caucus. We recognize the trends and the attacks on the press, on universities, on students, on immigrants, on gay people, on everyone, and recognize that it's a five alarm fire. And it just is. We need to act that way.
Yeah. I mean, even just saying what you just said would have been more comforting than hearing Hakeem Jeffries say, we're going to respond in due time, and don't you worry. We're creating, we're A/B testing a response and seeing, voters react to it. I mean, before we move on, I guess I just wanted to get your thoughts on I referenced this when we were talking about, 2024, but seeing the ability for the, Trump and the administration, the regime, to demonize immigrants to this degree, to have them sort of do the rug pull of haha, we were just kidding about criminals. We mean anyone without legal status, even if, or even if they do have legal status, they're literally going through the immigration courts and you're sweeping them there. But, you've got articles like this, coming out. This is from the New York Times about, a Missouri town where this woman, Carol Hui, who's of Chinese descent, she's been in this country, I don't know, it's like 20 years now. And everyone in this Missouri town is voted for Trump. And then they're like, wait a minute, but we didn't vote to, deport Carol. We thought they said, just getting rid of the gangs and the people who came here in droves. And then knowing that is very much not what this DHS is doing at all. I mean, how, in your mind, how do we rehumanize immigrants? How do we actually call out this kind of fascism as being sort of part and parcel of the, like broadly what happens when we pour so much money, if you ask me, into, immigration law enforcement and so little into actually pathways for real reform?
Oh my gosh. I completely agree with you. I mean, the couple of things of what you just touched on, that story of that town and this woman, it both comforted me that people are having an awakening, but also makes me so angry because you and I know that like it was very clear what Donald Trump meant this whole time. And it takes obviously an immense amount of privilege for someone to have just said, well, like, I don't, this isn't going to affect me or any of my friends or my neighbors. It's, but I think that Democrats have not offered like the type of immigration policies that we need. And on the communications piece of things, we're always, and you just, everything, you're saying just harped on it, but we're so focused on having like the perfect message and making sure everything is poll tested and tailored and being careful. And therefore people like, what was her name, Heather, like in the towns like this, like
Carol,
but the woman who said, my friend Carol,
yes,
we probably never got to her. Like we probably never got to some of those. Vanessa, I'm sorry. We probably never got to Vanessa, and Vanessa probably didn't know, Carol's story. And I just think like we need to be in every possible corner communicating and not having just like one message for everybody, but being in these like niche channels on different issues. And I don't know. It's really, really
right. Not giving up on districts just because they, they lean red or, constituents just because they don't always vote. I mean, I think that with young people and also people of color, they're often like, they're not as reliable voters. We're just going to focus on the centrist.
Yeah. Or we take them for granted. We assumed that young people would always be with us. And now many think like we don't do anything and we don't fight and we don't like care about anything, or that we're not real people and we're not authentic. Because everything we say, sometimes things that we say and, are just sound like talking points.
Right. I want to ask you some harder questions, actually, before I let you go, because you're filling the seat of Ruben Gallego. You're sitting in his seat. He's now a senator. And, really, I was really heartened to see that you voted against the Lake and Riley Act. I think that's really important. And Ruben Gallego sadly voted for it. I was just like, why? But I think the other thing that he has been doing also recently is he was just at a fundraiser with Mark Andreessen, who is a known ally of Donald Trump. He's an advisor to Doge. He's part of the sort of, Andreessen, Horowitz tech bros. And, Gallego is very open about saying, no, we need this money. Let's go. Let's get this money too, even though it's, to me, very clear that these tech guys, the crypto fascists, as a lot of people call them, are squarely on the side of the 1% and the oligarchy. And they know they're going to get the most delivered to them by the likes of Trump or Vance or some other Christian nationalist. And so I guess my question to you is also, you don't have to talk about Gallego if you don't want to, but also, your campaign back in 2024 did receive the help of a pro-crypto PAC. And as Trump is rolling out his meme coin, his crypto wallet, his, all kinds of what is his new market or whatever, like, are you concerned with the kinds of interests that support cryptocurrency? And do you think that the Democratic Party should be throwing down with some of these crypto lobbyists?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think like what I agree with Senator Gallego broadly is this notion of needing to build a bigger tent and maybe like not alienating people or having like purity tests all the time for who we include. On the crypto front specifically, the truth of the matter is, and I've said this many times, I know very little about crypto. There's unfortunately like after Citizens United and all of like the money that started getting into campaigns, there is an outrageous amount of money that is spent in primaries, Republican races, but Democratic primaries. Like there is no reason that millions of dollars should have been spent in my race. And unfortunately what happens, and this is like the behind the curtain stuff that a lot of people never see, I have always been a super progressive candidate. I'm Iranian American. Like I am the furthest thing from MAGA. But I was not friends with a lot of the progressive members. I didn't have connections here in DC. So I didn't get the endorsements of those groups. And when you don't get the endorsement of those groups, then what happens is like the crypto PACs see who's supporting your opponent. They know they don't like those people. And so they just side with the other candidate. And I think like on crypto, I'm not anti-crypto. I think we need regulation. I've had very open conversations with some of these organizations about that. But I also wasn't expecting, you know, under this Trump presidency, we are seeing corruption on mass levels. Like what's happening in the Senate right now, where they're trying to pass this bill to regulate crypto, which a lot of the Democratic senators have said like would be great, but why is the president exempted from some of these ethics clauses that members of Congress aren't? And so, yeah, crypto is one of those industries that, because, you know, was very much wanting Trump to win because they knew that under a Trump presidency, like they would have it a million times better and they wouldn't really be regulated the way they would if a Democrat had won. So, yeah,
I mean, the goal actually is to be regulated so that they can go legit and go above board and effectively, have banks putting people's retirement funds into crypto, a market that is incredibly unstable, obviously rife with all kinds of not just corruption, but illicit activity, criminal behavior. If we're in this, in this world of even taking the word criminal seriously, you bet your ass that it's being done with crypto. And so it is very concerning, that Mark Andreessen and Horowitz have been lobbying for the Genius Act. I mean, a lot of choice words for, senators like Kirsten Gillibrand and people who I'd always thought were against money in politics. This is really big. I mean, are you looking to make a commitment to not accept cryptocurrency or not quite yet?
The money that was spent in my race was all outside money. Right. It wasn't direct campaign contributions that were solicited. And so
it was just spent in your favor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mostly, again, like the behind the curtain is like mostly because of how groups feel about one another. It becomes like
the other groups that didn't endorse you. Yeah. No.
It becomes a proxy war, like, oh, X person is endorsed by this organization or this one member. They must think that, therefore let me support their opponent. And I'm very, I speak about this very openly. I am now a proud member of the Progressive Caucus. I think I've been one of the most progressive members, vocal on issues that many people are shying away from, even though I'm from Arizona, very, generally conservative state. I think that in general, we should not, if the progressive movement wants to grow, then in primaries also where you have two progressive women of color, there's other ones happening right now. Why are you vilifying one? Or why are you we need to be uniting and trying to fight the enemies and progress and advance our causes and not just what I'm trying to say is there's issues with progressives as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think also the winner take all system, the lack of ranked choice voting, I'm a big proponent, although we'll see how it shakes down in New York. But also, the ways that money, I think if the Democratic Party wants to also earn the respect of its base is to say there's going to be no more money in these primaries. We have control of these primaries. And we're going to put massive campaign contribution limits because there's no way that these whatever, tens of millions of dollars should be spent against incumbents like Rep. Bowman, for example. I did want to ask you, also, we've got a commenter on YouTube, Mark Wallenban, who says he's a constituent, and sadly, he says you've been silent, or he hasn't heard enough about the case of Mahmoud Khalil. And maybe more broadly, just I do know that your campaign also took some money from the Democratic majority for Israel, given now 20 months of what genocide experts call genocide, targeting of civilians, hospitals, schools. Are you reconsidering that support? And, what do you think about this issue when it comes to sort of the future of the Democratic Party and, standing for human rights fully?
I think that the war has to end, that far too many Palestinians have been killed, that obviously October 7th was devastating. I do have parents who fled Iran, and, I'm very familiar with the government and the regime of Iran and their funding of Hamas. And I want to be very clear that I think Hamas needs to have zero future in a future for Israel and Palestine, but there 100% needs to be a two-state solution. Netanyahu is a far-right dictator. So I intend to be vocal on this issue. I have a very strong background in Middle East policy. I actually majored in international relations with a focus on the Middle East. So I think compared to most members of Congress, I speak Arabic, I speak Farsi, I've worked at refugee camps on the border of Jordan and Syria. There are few members of Congress with my lived and professional and academic experience on these issues. So I intend to use that and try to really be a leader on foreign policy and Middle East issues in particular that knows something about this and can bring a new light to it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think that's amazing. Speaking Arabic is huge. And I think having more, Middle East expertise is really important. And I super agree with you. I do think, though, in just the line that you just said, I mean, that is really the sort of standard bearer Democrat line that Netanyahu is very much cool with. He loves it because so long as you say Hamas has no future in Gaza, he can keep on committing war crimes with our money and our taxpayer dollars, because that is also their goal, is to get rid of Hamas, which they failed to draw a distinction between civilians and Hamas militants. So I just want to point that out, that, I would hope that you can be a leader. I absolutely think that people with more expertise need to be leaders, but that what you just said doesn't feel like leadership. It just feels sort of like a status quo answer. But I also think there's room for growth.
If I can disagree with you, I think both things can be true. I think that a far right, like a Trump, can take advantage of many things that someone would say, but that doesn't mean what they're saying is not valid as well. I still think it is very true that Hamas does not there are protests happening in Gaza against Hamas. The Palestinian community in Arizona that I meet with very regularly, the Arab American community, makes that very clear to me, that they do not support Hamas. And so I think that distinction is important, and actually speaking to folks like that in the community to inform the views as well.
I think that's amazing. I just think even just listening to Palestinian voices, Arab and Muslim voices, is so critical. So thank you, Representative. I really appreciate your leadership. I mean, I just you being open to this says a lot about your character. And I look forward to all that you're left to do, and also fighting with you and alongside you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, take very good care. And thank you all for being here. It's good. We gotta, first of all, I love that Representative Ansari is like the new squad. It's like 2018 was when Trump was, first Trump administration. And then I didn't really ask her whether she was part of the new squad, but, there's newer members and they come through because, desperate times call for actually amazing people. And they all happen to be like young people of color, and, kids of immigrants. So good shit. And thank you all for being here. And thank you for your questions and your comments and your concerns. Donald James says 18 months of bitching. Here's to 18 more months. Cheers. Cheers. That beer looks good. And I realize it's an emoji. Benjamin Morrill for 15 months. Live show was so much perfect in a 1 hour and 24 minutes package. Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for listening, even though you might not have been there. Everybody can listen wherever you get your podcasts. The live show is still fun. It's still a good time. I mean, sometimes you had to be there, but look, all the recording equipment worked, which was a miracle. Thank you, Ben, for the super sticker. Just Julie, thank you. Susan D says, happy and safe Pride Month to all. Yes, happy Pride, everybody. Remember, Pride was a riot. Let's go. And Sarah Benchley, I'll see you in Seattle. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Me too. And thank you, JP H. Wood, who says, I had fun at the Elysian last Friday. I know there's going to be more. Maybe an end of the year show. If you miss me live, though, July 5th, that's a Saturday. We're doing my show, my stand-up show, New World Disorder at the Ice House in Pasadena. So you can see me there as well. Tony Barbosa, greetings from Brazil. Have a nice live, people. No, you have a nice live. Striker, Miller was auditioning for future right-wing media outlets, i.e. you can count on me to be a company man. I don't know what he was doing. I think Matt Miller walks into conversations and does not know how he's going to get out of them. Like he was just like, he fully like watching someone openly flail and like word salad themselves to death. I mean, I realize we just watched a bit from Hakeem Jeffries, but Robert says Cheney actually now has a heart. They took it from another human being and gave it to him. That's just a waste of donor. Let's see. I think I understand this comment, but I'm not going to read it. Rachel Atwood says Crockett also used to be pro crypto. I think that's yes, exactly. And I really do think, these are some of the hard questions we have to ask because I think Jazmine Crockett is a total leader in this moment. She is really unafraid and she's saying some hard truths and she's a total fighter. But that is why we have to ask people tough questions because we think they're good. Like, because we like people, we ask them the real questions. And I think, Jazmine Crockett absolutely should be made to answer for, all right, what do we think about crypto? Are we going forward with this? Ruben Gallego has clearly made his bet. He's like, yeah, give me that Andreessen money. But like, we know that this is bad. This is going to backfire on everyone and only triple, quadruple, quintuples down the role of money in our politics. Franklin Rockefeller, pay me more money and I'll read your comment. Juan Morales says, I want to say we had a great time at the live show. Thank you for what you do. Hope to see you live again. Salute. Hey, salute to you. Derek Graham, crypto provides a secret open account. The dark money does too. Yeah, I know. It's like, don't you already have legal ways to bribe? Mad Nack says, really disappointed in Ansari's position on Gaza, but liked other parts too. Indeed. Mark Wollenban, I'm a Jewish constituent, by the way. Thank you, Fran. No, thank you. Fascist Killer, see, this is a true journalist here asking questions. Fran, he's not going to back down, even though this individual is a decent ally and honest person, in my opinion. But as always, you need to keep them accountable. People change, people learn, people, and of course, again, this is the question, right? For those representatives who, I'm not going to be the flagrant podcast. We're not just going to bro down. Also, I don't have the studio space. But like, if folks are real, they come back. They're going to talk. They're going to spar. We'll get into it. And then we move on. Like, it is perfectly okay to ask tough questions. And Democrats need to get comfortable with that. That's the only way they're going to really compete in the podcast space, is if they get comfortable and okay with those questions. Because that like fall in line cult personality shit, that's for the right. That's what the right does. And it's very easy to go on those shows because they'll never push back on what you have to say. Eston Ray, thank you for the super chat. And Linda Martinson, drop site released that Hamas agreed to step down and release the hostages, but Israel did not agree to that. They deleted that part out. Wonder why. Thank you, Linda, for bringing that, because I wasn't up to date on exactly the situation. So thanks for the correction too. And we'll dig into it. Maybe we'll do a little bit more on that tomorrow. Drop site's just so incredible. Hopefully we can have Scahill on at some point soon, guys. With that, let's just thank everybody with a Dance It Out fart song. I don't think we have any patrones. I don't think we have any upgrades. Let's see what's going on Twitch. This is the fart song. Let's go, people. Subscribing. Thanks to April559 and Swoosh. Appreciate you guys. And that's the end of the fart song. So those of you who hate the fart song, you did this. You can support this show by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. $10 gets you that shout out during the fart song and my undying love. I'll see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And thank you to Paige Omek, my wonderful producer who was here in LA. Thank you to Andy Vasoyan, who was also in LA for the live show. Thank you to Brent Godin, who is crushing it behind the scenes over on YouTube and Facebook and all the things. Exciting things from me. But until then, guys, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.